The morning at the fire station began like any other. The sound of distant sirens, the smell of fresh coffee, and the warm touch of the sun filtering through the windows. James was accustomed to the routine. For years, he had run that environment with his calm presence and solid experience. The kind of person who knew how to act in any situation, yet remained calm, always silent, attentive to details. Today would be no different, or so he thought. He was in the break room, rummaging through some papers, when Ethan entered through the door with an expression that mixed nervousness and curiosity. The newcomer had arrived at the station the previous day, and now finally his first real shift was beginning. James watched from afar. The young firefighter seemed a little lost, as if he were trying to fit in without being a bother. His movements were careful, his gaze steady, trying to absorb everything. Nothing like how he had been in his first days. James couldn't help but notice the sincerity in his attempt to adjust. It was hard not to notice Ethan. He didn't attract attention in an aggressive way, but there was something in his energy that awakened curiosity in James. He knew that the newcomer was anxious, but he also felt that there was more there, something he couldn't explain. Throughout the day, the interactions between the two were brief. A nod here, a few exchanged words there. Nothing very direct, but still, there was something passing between them. Sometimes James would see him watching him from a distance, trying to learn the steps, perhaps even with a bit of admiration, but he never forced anything. He knew that time would take care of the rest. It was during the lunch break that, inadvertently, the encounter became more significant. James sat at the canteen table, watching Ethan trying to fit into the routine, as he always did. The newcomer seemed hesitant when approaching a chair, but upon seeing him, James made a subtle gesture inviting him to join. Ethan hesitated for a second, but soon smiled and accepted the invitation. The conversation began with the usual comments about work, but gradually it became more personal. "How is your first real day going?" James asked, unhurriedly, while stirring his plate. Ethan shrugged, but as he looked at James, his gaze was more open, more genuine. "It's a bit strange, actually. I imagined it would be a bit more dramatic, but so far so good. I don't know. I'm trying to find myself here." James looked at him, seeing a sincerity that, in a way, made him smile. It was rare to find someone so genuine, someone who was still trying to understand their place in the world. "Don't worry, we all go through that. There's no rush. Time will help. And deep down it's all about trusting what you feel." Ethan merely nodded, his gaze softening, as if James's words had touched something within him. The conversation continued flowing naturally, and even without much more to say, both felt a lightness in the moment, as if they were beginning to understand each other's rhythm. That night, when the team was called to a fire in an old building, Ethan was nervous. James could see that. He wasn't yet fully accustomed to the intensity of the work, to the pressure that came in situations like that, but there was something more there. When they looked at each other in the middle of the operation, there was a silent exchange, a mutual understanding. James knew that Ethan was ready for something more than he had imagined. He was beginning to immerse himself in the work, in the risk, in the life of those chaotic streets. After the mission, when everything had ended and the team was back at the station, James noticed that the newcomer was more at ease, but there was still something in his eyes, as if he were trying to understand what was happening inside him. When the team dispersed to rest, Ethan stood still, watching the others, his mind probably occupied by the whirlwind of the day. James approached him, with calm steps, unhurried. He knew it was time for another kind of conversation, something deeper. "Are you all right?" James asked, his voice soft, but with a touch of concern that only those who know what it is like to face risk there could understand. Ethan looked at him, and something in his eyes changed. He didn't answer immediately, but the look exchanged between them seemed to carry more than mere words. "I think so. I just need a moment, you know," Ethan said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "This is all new to me. I didn't expect all of this." James watched him for a moment, and then, unhurriedly, made a simple movement. He placed one hand gently on his thigh as a gesture of support, as someone who understood the fragility of the moment. It wasn't a bold gesture, but one that offered comfort. "There's no rush, Ethan. The road is long. The important thing is that you're present, that you feel what's happening without forcing anything." Ethan closed his eyes for a second, as if absorbing James's words. The calm in the environment seemed to fill the space between them, as if the outside world no longer existed. Night fell, and the silence between them was laden with a new tension, something neither could ignore. Each knew that the connection between them was growing stronger, more evident, but neither was willing to rush things. They knew that something important was beginning, something that would be built over time, unhurried. In the early hours of the next morning, while the station was silent, Ethan approached James once more. His gaze was more open, more confident, as if he had found something within himself. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he was beginning to understand that maybe he didn't need immediate answers. Perhaps the answer lay in what they shared there, in that moment. "James," said Ethan, his voice firmer now, yet still carrying a silent curiosity. "Yes," James replied, turning to him, maintaining his gentle tone. Ethan took a step towards him, and the proximity made them both feel the electricity of the moment. It wasn't an urgency, but something deeper, more intimate. When their eyes met, there was a silent exchange. Ethan didn't know what to do with that growing sensation inside him, but he knew that James understood. The tension in the air was palpable, yet still nothing was said. They stayed there, for a long second, allowing the moment to unfold naturally. Ethan took a deep breath as if preparing himself for something, but before he could say anything more, James moved closer with calm, looking him in the eyes. "You don't need to rush, Ethan. Everything has its time. Just enjoy what we're living right now." The connection between them was clear, without words, without haste, yet as strong as any bold gesture could be. They knew that the future was yet to come, but what kept them there was the mutual understanding of the moment, the silent exchange that was becoming more evident each day. As the night drew to a close, James knew that their relationship wasn't limited to that moment. What had begun simply and subtly was now becoming something much stronger. They were discovering each other slowly, unhurriedly, yet with a growing and silent desire. The future was uncertain, but there was something in the air, something that said that what was beginning between them was only the start of something even deeper.
Comment below what you would do in their place. Would you fight, hide your desires, or give in completely? If you liked it, like and share when no one's watching. And don't forget, betrayal is not subscribing to the channel.